Hope you're having a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porchlight Letters podcast number 2386. What can birth, marriage, and death records really tell me? These are some of my favorite records. They're called vital records, which are doorways into everyday lives. Birth records reveal family structure. A birth certificate showing multiple addresses suggests movement or instability. But the other things that you can get on there is the name that was given at birth, the date that they were born, their father's name and what their occupation is. On some birth certificates, you will have the mother with her maiden name and maybe what her occupation is. If it's on a parish record, it's not usually a birth that's recorded in a parish record. Excuse me, I got stuff caught in my throat today. Parish record is more a baptismal record or christening record, but sometimes they also record the date of birth on there as well. Marriage records expose social networks. Witnesses often indicate close friends or relatives, so always look who are the witnesses on the marriage certificates. Not only that, you have the groom's full name on there, maybe his age. It may even put in there of age, which means that back in the 1800s into early 1900s, I think it was. No, 1800s. It had of age meant that they were 21 or older and did not require parental permission to get married. For women, it was 18 and older that did not require parental permission to get married. So this would often be there. That would show up on the record. So it says of age. It meant that they were of a legal age to get married and they didn't require parental consent. If they were under that age, it showed their age and also showed that parental consent had been received. Or not, depending on where they were getting married. They could have eloped to places where that didn't matter. You ever heard of Gretna Green in Scotland? That's where people in England would elope to Gretna Green to go and get married up there, where there was no age limit requirement or anything like that. So it'll often tell you that too. Also on marriage certificates, you may have the father's name, the name of the father, and what his occupation is. In later years, you start getting the mother's name and her maiden name put in there as well. But back in the 1800s, it was just the father's name that would be on there along with his occupation. Always check the witnesses. They could be, if they've got the same last name as either the bride or groom, it could show that they're tied to relatives. If they're close friends, they may, or even those with married names too. It could be a sister-in-law or a brother-in-law that's used to help sign the register as well. Death records reveal final relationships. The informant named on a certificate often shows who was the closest at end of life. They are the person who will provide the information on the deceased. Things like birth date, where they were born. Date and death of time is usually provided by the doctor, if there is a doctor around, or a coroner. They may have on there. I know when Brad passed, I had to put just not only where and when he was born, I had to put his father's full name, where and when he was born, if he was still alive, and if he was deceased, his date of death. On his for his mother, I had to put her full name, including her maiden name, not her married name, where and when she was born, and if she was deceased or not. I think it also asked on the, I'm trying to remember if it asked on some death certificates, when you're filling these out, when you give the information to fill these out, they will require, how many children do you have that are still living and what are their ages? You don't have to say whether they're male or female. On some death certificates, you put an M in front for male and F in front for female, and then their age afterwards. Cause of death is provided by the doctor or the coroner. There's just a lot of information you can get off the death certificate. But you have to remember, look at who the informant is that's giving this information. It could be a child, it could be a neighbor, it could be someone who doesn't even know who the parents are, and that area is left blank. So just be aware of that. Date. There could be, oh, sorry, brain's just gone fried. There could be dates out there that seem to be popping up and you're wondering what happened at that time. So go check the newspapers, see what happened on that date, what was going on that date. There could be some events that were going on during that time that had an effect on the family. You don't know this. Um, Locations, these anchor the stories. Repeated places suggest stability and community ties. It's also fun too that if you can go and travel and walk in the footsteps of your ancestors, you can go back to maybe the town or the city or the village that they came from. And if you have a local historian, you could maybe get them to guide you around. And maybe the house that your ancestors were born and raised in could still be standing in this day. And the local historian may even be able to find some records of your ancestors because they were there in that area for such a long time and didn't move. Maybe didn't move. They might have moved around in that area, but they always stayed in that area. So maybe there could be some newspaper articles in there, some journal entries and transcripts. You never know what you can find. But it's always fun to go looking at places and being able to walk in the footsteps of your ancestors, knowing that that street that you're walking along, your ancestors used to walk along that street. That house that you're looking at, your ancestors lived in that house. It's a really cool experience, I have to tell you. And why this matters is because vital records hold more narrative than we expect. Absolutely. Sometimes you'll come across things on birth or death certificates or even marriage certificates that's like written in the margin or written at the bottom of the certificate that's not actually part of the information required on the certificate. Another one that should be in here too is probate records. Probate records can be a goldmine of information because in the probate records, you will have the last will and testament of the person who passed, if they have one. You will have letters, what are they called? There's letters in there from people, references that knew the person. You will also have in there when they're doing probate, I know we had to do this for Brad. You have to advertise in the newspaper under some section of classifieds that this person has deceased and their estate is going into probate. If you are a debtor or anything like that off this person, you need to contact them so they can file it with the thing. So anything required that may have a debtor involved would be recorded in the probate file as well. The probate file is a wealth of information because when you're reading through the will, it will list anybody in the family who may or may not get stuff. They may just list these are the members of my family. It may even turn around and say that this is the only person in the family that's going to get stuff, but they may list all the other people. They may list a first wife and a second wife. You never know. I tell you, those documents are very revealing at times. You may even find out about a love child in there, or a child that was born out of wedlock that the person has recognized as their child, and maybe they have left them a small thing. You may find out, you may not even know about that. And I have heard where at will readings where that has come into play, where at the will, the rest of the family finds out that that the person who's deceased had a child out of wedlock with somebody else. It happens, trust me. They're out there. There's all sorts of things that could come in there. So yes, there's a lot of really good records out there. So make sure that you find the records, you have a look through them and read and just see what information that you can find on there. And they can actually tell really cool stories. They can. Your practical takeaway for today is study who appears around the record, not just the names. So you're not just looking at the names, you're looking at the record. What is on the page or the entry before that record? What is on the page or entry after that record? If they've got one page per record, who's before and after that person? Go a couple of pages back, a couple of pages forward. There was one time I was looking for a death certificate for somebody, a death record, and there had been this big major accident, and the person had passed as a result of injuries sustained in this accident. I was able to find and what led me to it is a brief memory from the client who talked about this accident. She said, I seem to recall that maybe my her relative, like her aunt, was involved in this accident, but she wasn't sure. So first thing I did is I went and researched the newspapers in that area looking for it. It was right there, huge front page articles with little short stories and all of that about there and there. And reading through the article, I found her aunt listed there as one of the, no, actually, that was the day after the thing, because she didn't pass till a few days late, till about a couple of weeks later. So it gave me a starting point for that. The aunt was listed in this newspaper article. What else could I find out about her? So I started researching through the newspapers. That happened a few days later, came across her death announcement in the newspaper. So then went back and found her death certificate, and it's even stated on the death certificate that she succumbed to injuries sustained and mentioned the accident that had happened. And it was a major accident. There were a lot of people that died. And so flipping through pages before and after, there was a lot of people who had passed away from that accident, and it had their, died as a result of injuries sustained in this accident. And it was one entry per page. I remember that one quite clearly. So you never know what's going to come up. And when you're looking at the events and you're going backwards and forwards through these, you may find there was a whole bunch of people that died on that day. Was there something that happened that day? So maybe go back and have a look through newspapers to see what was going on that date. So great, and there may also be notes written in the margins as well on some of these books where they have this information entered, or on the certificate. There could, if you have the actual certificate, turn it over. What's on the backside? Is there anything on the backside of the certificate? You're looking at the front, that's all pretty and everything else with all the scroll writing and the fill in the blank type of thing. It may have been typewritten depending on the time, but if you turn that certificate over, is there anything on the back? You never know, you might just find something there. So if you want help interpreting records, just send us a private message and let's set up a 30-minute free, no obligation discovery call to get you on the path to helping you interpret your records. And as a closing thought, records whisper stories beyond their facts. And with that, we're out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening. Hang on, gotta check on my times. Tomorrow evening at, let's turn the page. Yep, at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, konera.